passe. Super, l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Hello everyone and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. Chris O'Reilly here, joined by Alex Kulash, and we are of course talking about the playoff round of the Men's Champions League coming to an end later on tonight. But we thought it'd be a good time to speak about the games on Wednesday night. And in order to do that, we brought in two friends of the show, Kevin Domas and Sascha Staat.
Welcome to Kevin and Sascha, a combination that I don't think we've had on the podcast, but we've got a French and a German angle on the Champions League. Welcome, guys.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me as well.
Quite an unusual time to have such a French and German focus on the playoff round of the Champions League, because we, this week, as the playoff round is coming to an end, all four matches in the Champions League actually being played in these two countries, with the two French teams and the two German teams finishing outside of the automatic quarterfinal spots. So interesting time to check in with both of you.
Can we just talk about just how disappointing this playoffs round has been? Come on, guys. Let's not beat around the bush. I've been looking forward to this for so long. Knockout handball. I talk about it all year. And you give me this? You give me Magdeburg destroying Dinamo Bucharesti? Oh, this is...
Two of the three games did have drama, you could say, right? At least in one form or another, with Nantes and Berlin. But let's focus on the positives, Alex, first of all, and Berlin against Kielce, because that was an absolute storming game. And I felt like, Sascha, I want to get your perspective on this. It felt like Berlin, with this squad being in the Champions League for the first time, were given almost like their first real lesson of like what to expect in an event like this, in a knockout round like this, where things could go really badly against a team like Kielce. But they passed the test in the end. I wouldn't say with flying colours, but a solid B+.
Yeah, maybe just a B. I don't know, because I think because of the way they're playing in the Bundesliga right now and they're first in the standings, I think that their focus might have shifted a little bit. And after the win in Kielce, I think that maybe they lacked a little bit of that focus in the game in Berlin and the return leg. So I think that's a major point, actually, if you want to take a look back at the game. And I think that, we always expect so much from the star players, and sometimes they just can't deliver because of the physical burden they have. And sometimes maybe they just don't have a good day. I mean, we have high expectations. We're talking about a back-to-back World Handball Player of the Year in Matthias Gisele, and he won't score 10 goals all the time. That's just human. I don't know, Michael Jordan didn't score 45 points every night as well. So anyway, I think this is it's a great achievement for Füchse Berlin, because they didn't sign another player after Paul Drucks was injured and retired during the start of the season. And when you know his role, the role he has had in the past on defense, and also being the captain of the team, I think it's really impressive that they're playing the way they're playing now. I think they were the favorites going into the games against Kielce, because Kielce is not the Kielce it used to be. I think they will be much stronger next year with Alex Fla and Adam Morawski, two very important signings for them. They lack quality on the goalkeeper position after Andreas Wolf left them last summer. So I think they were the favorites, and I was very impressed with the first leg. Not so much, obviously, in the second leg, but I think in the first game, they showed what they're made of, with all the young players developing game after game. We're talking Tim Freihofer, the left wing, who just had his first call-up for the national team. Mathis Langhoff, a young left back, the backup for Anderson. He's playing better every week, actually. I will commentate the Füchse game in Erlangen on Saturday, and my producer called me today and asked, what kind of players do you want to talk to? And I said, I want to talk to Mathis Langhoff because I think he's not in the spotlight so much, but he's an integral part of this team. He's very important. And yeah, I think overall, I mean, they won by 6 goals. Yeah, yesterday they had a tough start to the game, and it looked like maybe Kielce could come back. But in the end, I think just the better team went on to the quarterfinals.
I think they still got lucky. Lucky in 2 ways, that they have Matthias Gietzel, who scored 12 goals from 13 shots, which is what he does. And Kielce, their goalkeepers they just don't have goalkeepers. When you score 24 goals in a half and you still draw the game, something is going wrong, and that's not your attack, for sure. But impressive for Füchse Berlin anyway to beat a quite seasoned Champions League team in Kielce, a team that's been through so much.
With Kielce, I think they have a lot to almost be proud of the way they fought back. Like, it was a proper Kielce in the Champions League performance. And Kevin, I mean, they're practically a French team now. And at times, at times the way that Konku and Nahi were taking over in the backcourt as well, and on transitions, it felt like they were going to do it all by themselves. But do you feel losing at this round, probably for the first time in Kielce's history, is almost like acceptable given how poor the season was and how like riddled with injuries they were? Is like a moral defeat, like going out on their shield in this round against a good Berlin side, almost like acceptable for them?
I mean, you have to remember that Kielce only qualified for the playoffs at the last round in the group phase. I mean, they lost so many points because of, as Alex said, lack of defense, lack of goalkeeper. They signed Clement Verlin from Erlangen, and he got injured within 2 weeks. I mean, it's been a nightmare season for them. I think if you look at the roster, especially in the goal, between the posts and on the backcourt position, I mean, they are far from the Kielce that we used to know. Like, they are either old players or very young, unexperienced players. I mean, Olesniczak and Shishko, I mean, they might be talented, but they are not, to the level that Kulesh had back in the day, or I could quote and give you 10 names. So, I mean, it's quite okay. They didn't take a blowout against Berlin. Like, they drew yesterday. They were ahead, and I'm sure that they kind of hoped to qualify at some point. There was something to play yesterday. I mean, they basically played bad for 15 minutes, 20 minutes of the first leg. But, I mean, this is okay. I guess that this is why no one is talking about talent, risking to get sacked or something, because, I mean, I think everybody's quite lucid and is quite, aware of the limitations of the team. I mean, there are some brilliant players, and you talked about Nahi, you talked about Kunkud, and I could talk about Karalek, for example. Those are brilliant players, but at the end of the day, it's just not enough to go through to the quarterfinals. That would have been a huge surprise, in my opinion, to see Kielce qualify.
You have to remember that the best team in Poland right now is not Kielce anymore. It's Wisła Płock. They won the championship for a reason. And as I'm quite familiar with the history of the team in Kielce, the players that have played there in the past 10 to 15 years have been legendary players also. Agina Galde as a line player, for example. He's a legendary player also in the history of handball. We can talk about all the great Polish players they had when they won the Champions League in 2016. And I think now it's a transition phase. And I just said before that Morawski and Alex Fla, they will bring quality to the team. And Kevin just mentioned that Clement Verlin signed there and then he got injured right away. I think he would have been a huge improvement for them when it comes to goalkeeping, because usually when he's in the spotlight, he's a quite good goalkeeper. He wasn't that good of a goalkeeper for Erlangen for some reason, but also that's a shitty team. But still, I think overall, I agree. I totally agree with Kevin that the quality of the team in Kielce is not the same it used to be. And that's the main reason also. And I totally agree again that Dushabayev is not risking his job because they know what this team is capable of. And I think going out in the playoffs is just the right thing for Kielce. They would have overperformed if they went to the quarterfinals. They would have underperformed missing the playoffs. So they're just right there.
I mean, if you want to talk about a disappointment, Kolstad were a real disappointment. Like, they have Torbjörn Bergerud, they have Sander Zagozen, they have all these players that are really like strong international players, and they didn't qualify. Whereas Kielce, I mean, everybody's talking about Kielce as if Kielce was the same as in 2018 or 2019. This is not true anymore.
Guys, I think you're. Come on, this is. So Kielce are like Kielce just lost Andy Wolf from last season. You know, broadly speaking, Andy Wolf was the only difference. So they are a really good team. They've been hammered by injuries this year for sure, but I think I agree. There's a good feeling right now about Kielce. Like, no one's angry at Talent. But if they lose the Polish league again, this is a catastrophe of a season. Because I think the squad is good enough. Like, again, the likes of Karolek, the likes of Alex Dushabayev. You know, Alex Dushabayev was nominated the second best men's handball player in the world, apparently, according to IHF.
And for yesterday, for the 15 minutes before he got injured, he was looking like the second best player in the world. At least he finally showed that form until he pulled his groin or something. So, yeah, that was another pity for them. That might have, I mean, if it wasn't Jorge Makeda there, in that second half, it might have been a different story. But what your point is, Alex, that there should be some pressure now. There should be some big changes. Like they really struggled with injuries for most of the season. And if it wasn't for that, they might not have been dealt with facing Berlin in the playoff round.
Definitely. But I think nevertheless, to not fully disagree with Kevin and Sascha that, you know, they just haven't been, I think even if they had a full squad, they weren't anywhere near at the same level as they had been before, because this is win the Champions League type of team. That's the goal for this team. They've underwhelmed. People can forgive the injuries, but if they lose a third Polish league title in a row, and they beat Wisła Płock in their last game, but if they lose a third one, I think there's going to be discussions about the Dushabayev's future.
But Alex, can you name the two goalkeepers of Kielce from yesterday's game?
Wallach and Cordila. Cordila is the worst goalkeeper I've ever seen play at this high level.
And Milos Wallach is, I don't know, 20 years old or something. He's still a very young goalkeeper.
They both are. I think Cordila is 21.
What can you do with such kind of goalkeepers? And I don't want to be disrespectful. You just said they lost only Andreas Wolf in the summer. Only? Well, maybe he's the best goalkeeper in the world right now.
Yes.
We could make a debate about that, yeah? So they lost one of the top 3 goalkeepers of the last 5 to 10 years. And it's impossible, I think, to replace such a goalkeeper. The other goalkeepers have to get used to a defense. We talked about the lack of quality in defense Kielce has right now. Then all of the injuries. They can't find any sort of chemistry throughout the season. I think that's very difficult if players are injured all the time. And you should never underestimate that the way Andreas Wolf is building his kind of style, the goalkeeping style he has, the image he has in goal, other players are afraid to play against him. This is the reason why he's saving so many free shots when it comes to playing with Germany or on international level with Kielce before. Basically, he was the guy who propelled them to 2 Champions League Final Fours. And Alex Dushabayev, obviously, surrounded by other good players. But if you take this kind of quality away from a team, it makes a huge difference. So I wouldn't agree with that Talent is risking his job even if they lose to Płock. Yes, it would be a nightmare of a season if they lose to Plock again, not winning the championship. I agree with that. But if you look at the team Plock has right now, it's built in a better way. It's just a better team right now. And this is why they probably win the Polish championship. It might not happen, yeah. And then it's a great achievement by Kielce, I think.
So in that case, then, if we're saying that Wisła Płock is the better team in Poland, and they just got knocked out of the playoff round in the Champions League to Nantes, does that mean it's been a bit of a disaster season for Płock?
I don't know. I don't know what happened. My explanation is that Płock just had an off day. Like, they have been like so different from all the Champions League games that they have played since the beginning of 2025. Like, we're talking a team who won by 5 in Paris, and Paris had a full squad, who beat Berlin, who should have beaten Sporting. I mean, this was just an off day. You know, I don't know what happened. I was looking at the screen. I was like, what the hell is going on? I don't think yesterday's game in Nantes actually sums up the quality of Płock. As Sascha said, and I definitely agree with him, this is a really well-built team. Like, you have players that might not be international stars, just like Tomasz Piros and Fazekas and Zita. Those are not big names. You know, when you think handball, you don't think about those guys. But they know exactly what they have to do. And they are exactly, you know, doing what they have to. And they have been making a lot of progress in the past couple of weeks, even past couple of months. If you ask me my opinion, I would agree with Sascha. I mean, Płock are really above Kielce at the moment. But Płock are able to lose everything just because they have an off day. I do not feel like Kielce are, you know, they do not have off days. You know, they are quite consistent. Maybe they will lose games because they are playing against better teams. But the way Płock were destroyed yesterday, they were dismantled yesterday, was absolutely unbelievable and ununderstandable.
Yeah, you know, compared to, I've seen a lot of Płock since the turn of the year, since the World Championship, and they've been fantastic. I mean, the victories over PSG, Berlin, the first leg against Nantes, it was one of those, like looking at it from a Płock perspective, you know, you go into the game 3 goals up, you barely concede goals, like everything is set for you to grind out a victory, just like they did a couple of years ago against Nantes. It was a real nightmare for them. Like, they couldn't find a way past Pesic in goal. Hallgrimsson was almost throwing the ball in the back of the net at times, like that buzzer beater by Julien Bos. It just kept piling on. And I do kind of feel bad for them because, you know, they found themselves 11 goals down, so 8 down in aggregate. And yet they came close to almost drawing level again, which shows kind of the makeup of this team. Is there any more explanation than them just having an absolute nightmare opening 30 minutes?
I don't know. I do not think so, to be honest. I mean, they probably lost all their confidence in the first half. As you said, Ivan Pesic made me think he was the best goalkeeper in the world during this first half. I mean, you could throw any kind of shot and he would save it. You know, that was like unbelievable. But as you rightly pointed out, I mean, their second half was much better. They didn't even play much 7 against 6. And once they got going, then, you know, when they got their confidence again, I mean, they were really good. And if you take out some weird referee decisions in the last 3 minutes, they even might have, you know, made everything even on aggregate. But I don't know, I haven't had any quotes from after the games, but I'm pretty sure that the off day is the biggest explanation. As you said, some players played really below their usual level, especially in the first half.
This tie, I suppose, is an example of why I think that aggregate is probably not the way to go for handball. That you know, a best of 3 type of series is actually a better, you know, showcase of handball because you have goalkeeper performances, you have it's a momentum sport. Like, you can have one bad half in 4, basically, or a bad 20 minutes in 2 matches, and it can decide a whole game. On the other hand, if it was going to a third leg, Plotzk would have probably given up at half-time and gone home and and said, see you later, and wouldn't have tried. And, they almost got back. So I don't know about you guys. What's your thought on that?
I can absolutely understand your point. Absolutely. I totally get what you mean. And it's quite obvious. But on the other hand, as just said, they would have given up at halftime, gone home to Poland, knowing that they have the home crowd and so on. I get it. In US sports, we have playoffs with best of series in every sport, except for the NFL, because it's just wearing down the bodies of the players. If they had best of series, it wouldn't be possible at all. But in the NHL, Major League Baseball, in the NBA, we got best of series. If we look, even the German Women's Handball League is having best of series now. In handball, though, I think with the schedule, the way it's made, we just can't afford best of series. We can only have aggregate home and away games, because otherwise it would be a total mess. Teams couldn't afford just to block arenas in case of maybe they might need a game to be played at the arena. Then they have to fly. I mean, have you ever gone from Nantes to Plotzk? I mean, I've been to Nantes.
That's a really good point.
But first of all, you have to go from Nantes to Paris. Then you have to go from Paris to, I guess, probably Warsaw.
Amsterdam. Then to Warsaw. Then take a bus for 2 hours from Warsaw to Plotzk.
Seriously? Yeah, that's
I mean, no, like both teams went from Nantes to Amsterdam to Warsaw, then the bus.
So it's insane. Imagine you have to do something like that, like twice in about 10 days. And then you got the league games and so on. And we're talking always about players being played too much. I think the debate is only on players playing in the international teams competing in the Bundesliga, So we shouldn't get wrong on this point. I think players playing in the French league, the Danish league, and so on, they don't have this kind of problem. It's a problem for players playing in the Bundesliga on the top 6 teams to qualify for Europe only. So I think this debate is a little too hot at times. But a playoff system in the Champions League, we don't have too much money to spend in handball. So I don't think it would be useful.
I haven't done Nantes to Plotzk. I have done Nantes to Szeged, which is quite comparable, I would say, in 2 days.
In 2 days?
So Nantes on the Wednesday night and then Szeged on the Thursday night.
Thank God we don't have to go to Meshkov Brest anymore. That's
That is a story for another day.
It's actually surprising that, Alex, you are bringing up this topic right now, because Nantes Plotzk was probably one of the most, one of the games that I was the most excited about. I mean, there was something to play for. I mean, they have to win by 4. There was some kind of excitement before the game. I was like, oh, come on. They haven't won the first leg away. Plock are actually defending their 3 goals advantage. And that actually built up some excitement. I'm talking about myself.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you look at the EuroLeague playoffs, for example,
they were fun.
But sometimes some games are absolutely terrible because, as Sascha said, you are led by 20 at halftime. You just put all the youngsters on the court, and then there's no game anymore. I mean, it's kind of a two-way thing, because you have to play these games for 60 minutes with the current format. I mean,
here's my proposal then to try and fit it in. That's just come to my head. So you have the best out of 3. The lower seed has the first game at home, like they do. The higher seed has booked their hole on Tuesday and Thursday of the second week. If it's 1 win each, then you go to a third game, but aggregate still counts. And this is where you can't just go home after 20 minutes of the game, because whoever is leading on aggregate only has to draw the final match. The team behind an aggregate needs to win the final match. Then you also avoid a penalty shootout, which we all know is quite useless in handball as well, in terms of deciding a winning team.
Chris,
so
aren't you working for the EHF? Just go ahead with your proposal.
I like the thoughts there.
It could be fun,
Yeah, I do think it also adds a big element to the group stage, because I think it's you're fighting for home advantage would be really important for a handball team from a cost perspective, more so than anything. So like if you finish in the top 4 or you get a home advantage in the first round. If you finish in the top 2, you get home advantage all the way through. So you're kind of, it makes the group stage more important, more so than it is now. And I think
it's not important. What do you say?
Well, talking about one team who I guess didn't expect to be schlepping it in the playoff round was Magdeburg, who were unable to book their hull for the playoff second leg. I'm not sure if that's the reason, Sascha, that they had to go somewhere else because the Gaytech Arena was booked for that night, but it didn't really matter for them in the win over Dinamo.
No, and they were just too dominant in the first game. They could have won by 8 or 9 goals. In the end of the first game, they let it go a little bit. I think they were not forcing it too much. And I think in the second leg, they just played the way they had to. They had control basically all the time. And we shouldn't forget that they have been hammered by injuries as well. They had to do without key players for long parts of the season. Now Felix Klar is finally getting back. They are still in the race for the league title, although they got 3 games in hand, 3 games, because we remember this unfortunate event at the Christmas market in Magdeburg where they had to reschedule 2 games, and they're still in the hunt for going back to Cologne. They're still going for the league title, as I said. So I think they can be very satisfied. Okay, they're not part of the Cup Final 4 for the first time in ages. I don't remember, a long time. But I think when you consider how many injuries they had, you have to be very impressed that they're now in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. And yeah, I just have to check again who they will play. They will play against Veszprém. And it's not out of this world to think that they will beat them. It might happen. I think they're slight underdogs here in this case, but it's not like they're 70-30 underdogs. They're more like 45-55 underdogs, I would say. I don't know what you think about it, but I think they controlled this playoffs. They're getting into shape again, although they have to play a lot of games. But I think it also helps a player like Felix Klar, who hasn't played for a long time. He's coming back.
And Chris Jensen.
Yes.
All of them coming back, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a backcourt by itself. It's crazy. They're very good players. And if they're complete, I mean, it's like we still got some weeks to go until the quarterfinals are played, 3-4 weeks. I think if they're at mentally, I'm 100% sure they will be all right. If they're all right physically, I would right now probably bet my money on them making it to the Final Four, because all the pressure is on Veszprém again and again and again. Magdeburg can just play and enjoy the games.
Oh, I like it. I like it, Sascha. I like the spice on that one. And I think Magnussen coming back and playing well for the first time in a very long time is a huge sign for Magdeburg. I like the confidence in Magdeburg. I like Felix Klar a lot. And I like that Veszprém are going to be really scared. And I like all of that.
If you look at the whole season, Magdeburg have got nothing to lose. Like they were 10 rounds in, they were out already. They were behind Zagreb. They were behind all these teams that no one thought that would qualify. So they have got nothing to lose. I mean, if you had told me mid-November that Magdeburg would be playing the quarterfinals, I would have laughed you off. But they are. They've got nothing to lose. As Sascha said, they're going to enjoy this. I mean, it's almost a miracle for them to be there. I mean, it's almost a miracle for them to qualify for the quarterfinals after all that they've been through. So it's just, I mean, they're enjoying it, and you can see that on the court. I mean, the way they played against Bucharest in both games, they were just relaxed. We are confident in ourselves, and we've got nothing to lose. We haven't got any pressure. It felt like they were already happy to be in the playoffs.
How much pressure are they facing in the Bundesliga at the same time. So this is always the question of German teams, the balance of Bundesliga versus European competitions. And, you know, right now they have a lot of games in hand, They're still, if they win all of those games, they still only land in fourth place, but, you know, 2 points off the top. Like, do they have pressure to really push for a Champions League spot next season? Or again, is it a case of Kielce where you're looking at, okay, this has been a tough season. Magdeburg have been really, really good for a couple of years, and we're okay with kind of not qualifying for a Champions League next year? Because if that is the case, then there's no pressure. Then they can go fight, do whatever they want in the Champions League. But if they're focusing on doing something in the Bundesliga, I'm not sure they can handle both at the highest level with the season that they've had.
I'm not sure about that, because I think that 2 games against West Brom, it's a no-lose situation for them. As I said before, all the pressure is on West Brom, and Magdeburg is a team which can really go with the flow. It has been before that even when they didn't win the championship in the Bundesliga in 22 it was, the 2 seasons before, I think they had winning streaks of like 12 games or 13 games or 14 games in the league. With them, once they get in the flow, they're just unstoppable. Unlike any other team in the Bundesliga. You know, Kiel can win 5 in a row, Berlin can win 8 in a row, but this Magdeburg team is something else, and I think this is all on Bennett Wiegert and the way he's coaching this team. And he's so impressive as a person, and how he influences his players and what kind of attitude they bring on the court. They might lose games, but they fight all the time, and they're into every single game. The games they got on hand in the Bundesliga, I think, are against Erlangen and against Potsdam, which are the 2 worst teams in the league this season, and I think at home against Eisenach. So, where they probably are the big favorite as well. So I think this might work out. They don't play the Cup Final 4, which gives them some days of rest. It's not comparable to Kielce, or maybe it is a little bit. If they don't qualify for the Champions League, I think it's okay. It's not what they would like to do, but I think it's okay considering that Melsung is having a great season in the Bundesliga. We are not still convinced by Hanover because we don't know what they will do in the last couple of weeks from this season. And also Füchse Berlin is having a great season. And then Flensburg is having a bad season. Kiel is having a bad season. Imagine those teams would have...
Don't wrap up our entire Bundesliga chat in 30 seconds.
Sorry.
a nice teaser for later.
but I think, just you know, to answer quickly, I think there's no pressure on Magdeburg, not in the league and not in the Champions League. They can just go with the flow, and I like them going with the flow. This is why I think there might be a huge chance of an upset in the quarterfinals.
Well, they can even let players like Michael Damgaard and Tim Zeckel play a couple of games in the Bundesliga, maybe.
Absolutely.
To rest the legs. Before we let you go then, I mean, there is a game that tonight still in this disappointing round, as Alex calls it. Does anyone feel? I mean, the funny thing is, hopefully get this out before the game. But most people will listen to it after the fact. But is there any hope of a turnaround here for Szeged away to PSG? 1 goal down in aggregate.
As I see it, Szeged have been one of the most unexpected teams this season, and I mean by unexpected, they've been able to be really, really good some evenings and properly terrible some other evenings. So I don't know what to expect from them. Paris have got much more consistency, but they've been able to lose to Plosk. I mean, back in the day, in 2015, 2016, playing in Coubertin was almost a guarantee for loss for the opponents, especially in the Champions League. I think they remained 3 seasons without losing a game, without even drawing in the Champions League at home. Now they lose 2-3 times a season. So, it could happen. I do not think it will happen, to be honest, but it could happen. I mean, I'm sorry, Alex, maybe this game would be interesting, but I think it would be worth watching, at least. But both teams are really, capable of the worst on any given evening. Maybe you might disagree, but I don't think it's as clear as everybody think it is, to be honest.
So you're saying that it's not who's going to be better, it's who's going to be worse in this game. Who's going to be less worse?
What an appetizing evening ahead.
Oh, what a cheese!
I mean, and that's what I fear, and the winner gets to play Barca in the quarterfinals. So it's like, well, congratulations that you get that one. But yeah, I guess we'll tackle that one when we get to it. But all the other 3 quarterfinals look very interesting. We talked about Veszprém against Magdeburg, Sporting and Nantes. That's like a legacy EHF Cup battle. The Thierry Henry derby. Didn't he coach both teams at one point? Which and both missing players with injuries, and then the Danish derby between Aalborg and Berlin, Sascha, which is fun.
Oh, that will be fun as well. I wouldn't be shocked if Berlin would win this one as well. The return leg is in Aalborg, so the pressure is on Aalborg, just like with Magdeburg and Veszprém. For Berlin, it's obvious the focus is winning the Bundesliga title for the first time in the history of the club. So it's not comparable to the Magdeburg situation. But if you have Matthias Gissel, you can win any game. No matter who you play, it doesn't matter. If they can win the first leg with like 2 or 3 goals, I think they got a shot at surviving in Aalborg, because Aalborg is a good team, very good team, but not a super team, It's not an unbeatable team. It's not like you're going to Barcelona for the second leg. And Nantes Sporting, that will be a lot of fun. And I think it's great for handball that one of the 2 teams is going to the Final Four. I'm looking forward to whoever makes it from those 2 teams, that they will be playing in the Final Four. If Sporting goes to the Final Four, I mean, what kind of story is this with Salvador, the Costa brothers, and all those fun players they have? Great young players who will dominate handball for the next 10 years at least. So that would be fun. Nantes with the great fans they have, and they have been there before. So this is probably the quarterfinal I'm interested in the most, to be honest, even if it's not the German team playing there. But I just love this international affairs, some new teams or not the same teams always going to Cologne. That would be great.
I definitely agree with Sascha on the interest for Sporting against Nantes. It's good to have new faces. And Sporting have brought some freshness. That reminds me of Magdeburg when they came back in 2022. That was just like, new faces, new players, new teams, and they are playing incredibly good as well. That was so refreshing. I mean, I'm the first to complain about handball being centered around 3 or 4 teams. Barca, Kielce, Veszprém, PSG, and it's always the same faces and always the same players at the Final Four. Whether we have Sporting or not in Cologne, that would be amazing. And I do not care who goes, to be honest. I mean, either team deserve to be there. I also agree with Sascha on Aalborg not being the favourite, not being a proper favourite against Berlin. Of all the teams that have qualified for the quarterfinals this season, Aalborg is the one which has probably impressed me the least. They have been really good some evenings, but I mean, they got through because they drew in Nantes in the last evening, and they seem to kind of be looking for their rhythm. They're still trying to find their feet, and I was not impressed, but that doesn't mean they're not a great team. Whereas Barca are the obvious favourites, whether they play against Paris and Szeged. And which one is the last one? Oh, Magdeburg Veszprém, sorry. That would be interesting because, as I said before, like Magdeburg, we have nothing to lose. Veszprém will have everything to lose. And Veszprém might have been really impressive during the group phase, but the group phase was ages away now. This is really a new competition, and you could lose everything. You could lose everything into over 2 games. Veszprém are quite a different team now that Charlie Pasquale is at the wheel. But anything can happen. That's what makes it exciting. Are you excited about these games, Alex?
I'm very excited. Playoff handball, aggregate scores. It's gonna be amazing. Hype it up.
That would see all the excitement in Alex's face,
No, it is. They're great games. We'll have a full preview when we give our predictions, so I'm not going to do that. I appreciate you guys. We'll analyze it a little bit more, put our necks on the line. All the things you said does make me start to think slightly differently, especially about that Veszprém Magdeburg. Yeah, so we'll see how that plays out.
Thank you to Kevin and Sascha. And very interesting quarterfinals ahead. As they said, the playoffs may not have quite delivered as we hoped it to, but the quarterfinals definitely ones to look out for. And I guess we can say the same about the Women's Champions League as well. No real surprises at the end of the day in the playoff round of the women's competition. We talked about the potential for a little bit of a surprise between Brest and Podravka. Podravka doing the job in the first leg, but Brest turning it around in the end. We have some really good quarterfinals coming up there as well. Metz against Brest in an all-French quarterfinal. Jur against Ludwigsburg. FTC against Odense. And the classic quarterfinal tie between Esbjerg and Chesime Bucuresti. We'll be talking about that in a little bit more detail just before the quarterfinals. And actually, we'll talk a little bit about Metz versus Brest, the all-French affair, in our next Morning Club episode coming out tomorrow on Friday, as we speak to Kevin Domas again, more about the French League on the men's side, the European League exploits from Limoges, and that all-French quarterfinal in the Women's Champions League. And then early next week, we'll hear from Sascha again, as we hinted in our chat there about the Bundesliga, which is really, really heating up. So a lot more for you to look forward to over the next couple of days. But until then, everyone, enjoy the games coming up, and we'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye.